All right, we want to welcome everybody to our What is a Smart Job Site webinar today. We're going to give everybody just about a minute more before we start to get online. So if everybody will just sit patient, please. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar today. Our webinar topic is What is a Smart Job Site? I want to thank you for joining us. My name is Troy Guevara. I'm a solutions engineer for the larger clients here at BusyBusy, and I spend most of my time helping companies to maximize their construction IT. Essentially, I marry the construction world to the software tech world, something that hasn't been done a lot because it's pretty much a new industry. Joining me today is my colleague Israel Barlow. He's one of the pro advisors from our Next Level Consulting department. Say hello, Israel.
Hey, welcome everyone.
All right, today's topics. Today we'll be discussing a large problem that's currently facing construction today and how we solve it, the big idea behind it, and some of the trends in the industry right now. And then we'll talk further about what really is a smart job site and how to create that shift in your company. And then of course at the end we'll have a Q&A period. Before we get started today, I'd like to remind everybody, silence your cell phones so you don't get interrupted. Please notice there's a chat button on the bottom right of your go-to meeting control panel. You're welcome to chat us with questions you have. And you can ask us those questions. Like I said, we'll respond to those at the end. Also, we will be sending you a recording of this webinar later today. During the webinar, we will have some poll questions. We'd like to invite you to participate with us in those poll questions and look forward to seeing your responses. So let's go ahead and get started now. In a recent survey conducted by PlanGrid in association with FMI Corporation, they asked construction leaders about how teams spend time and utilize their technology investments. The results indicated that the time spent on non-optimal activities, which include obtaining construction data, managing conflict resolution, and fixing mistakes, will cost the construction industry $177.5 billion in labor this year in the U.S. construction industry.
Hey Troy, when you say non-optimal labor, are you talking about just office or are you talking about field as well?
Yeah, let me clarify that. So non-optimal labor is a labor that's not productive to the project and usually results from poor communication between the field and the office. For those of you that estimate, it's often what we'll call waste, and a lot of companies will consider that as a contingency or a loss as part of their bid item. So that's kind of what I'm speaking of there, Israel. Let's go ahead and before we move any further, let's go ahead and conduct our first poll here. Israel, I'm going to go ahead and conduct this poll. Would you launch it? Will you go ahead and read through that, please?
Yeah. So our poll is, which of these challenges do you face in your business? So let's select one of the following. Either payroll is a hassle, job review meetings are ineffective, we go over budget a lot, we seem to lose money on change orders, or final numbers vary too much from the original bid.
Okay, we'll give it just a minute, or just a few seconds, I guess. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that poll. And then we'll share those results.
So our results are payroll is a hassle, about 33%, job review meetings, 33%, we go over budget a lot, 50%. We seem to lose money on change orders more than usual, 50%. Final numbers vary too much from the original bid, 67%.
Okay, very good. So what is really the problem, right? Any of us that have spent significant time in the industry knows that there is a divide that exists between the field and the office. I think it's just safe to say that we can attribute most of this 177 billion to that gap, mostly because of the difficulty of sharing communication from the office to the field. So why don't contractors have the information they need? Although we do what we can to bridge this gap, our efforts are often futile. These are just a few of the problems that companies have cited from this chasm.
But from working with the companies over the last few years, these are some of the questions we've identified that companies ask when they're struggling with the same problem, the same $177 billion problem.
Yeah, and to further our point here, let me share this next slide. When cell phones became an everyday item on the construction site, we began to see faster means of communication between the office and the field. And while it did help to bridge this gulf a little bit that we've been speaking about, it didn't completely solve the problem. This report shows how construction companies are currently reporting daily activity, and less than a fourth are using the most current technology.
You can definitely see on this report, because we can't seem to get ourselves off paper, that we're losing that 177 billion. We need to adopt new technology.
Yeah, so even today, after more than 20 years since cell phones became common at the construction site, we're still using antiquated methods and maybe relying a little bit too heavily still on paper. We'll show you some other slides later. They're going to show you we're still relying a little bit too much on the old cell phones, not the new smartphones. So it's really time for a new method. In order for any of us to recoup our piece of that 177 billion, we have to come up with a new method. And what is that new method? Well, what we really need is a method that's going to get clear and organized data so we can use it to better manage our business. And both myself and Israel have been in many companies, and they do a fantastic job of creating time cards, daily reports, or other handwritten documentation that provides us information. Unfortunately, this doesn't bridge the gap. We need a better way. So the big idea behind this is that we've found that the advances in technology are helping us to produce the information we need. Many of today's accounting systems and even some of the more current project management softwares necessitate the gathering of this information, which is great, but they still lack the ability to move the data from one side of the chasm to the other any faster, or at least as fast as we need it. Many companies don't gather all the data that's available to them on a daily basis. But even for those that do, the bridge that is created doesn't necessarily shorten the time to get that information from the field to the office.
You're right, Troy. We have the tech to bridge it. I think the construction industry as a whole still struggles to adopt the technology. So instead of getting smart data from the job site, we're getting delinquent, unreadable, messy, bogus data. We'll call it dumb data. We see companies all the time that are collecting this data, dumb data. We see companies all the time that are collecting this data either on paper or antiquated software systems that still require you to enter the things manually at the end of the day.
Which, of course, we know is great for the next bid or even post-project review, but it fails to solve the problems that are occurring on the project that we're on the projects we're currently on, right?
Exactly. This still isn't streamlining anything. Software you enter time into for tasks manually by a single individual on the job is barely a step up from paper. We need accurate information to the minute, by the minute, and we need it to come in from every team member individually.
Okay. And so what we're trying to say here is that the power of the data, the power that lies within that data that we're gathering is in the timeliness of getting that data from the field to the office. And so let me share with you guys another story now. Sorry, were you going to say something else, Israel, or did I cut you off?
No, I was just agreeing with you. Timeliness is so important.
All right, so here's our next poll. Israel, you want to go ahead and read that?
Yeah, so how old is the most recent field data you have available from your projects? And the answers are less than 24 hours, 1 to 3 days old, 4 to 7 days old, or more than a week old.
Let's give it just a few seconds. Kim,
Like speed dating, right? Speed poll.
speed poll. All right, let's go ahead and close the poll. Okay.
So results, less than 24 hours, about 7%. 1 to 3 days old, 71%. So that's definitely our biggest group. 4 to 7 days old, 7%, and more than a week old, about 14%.
Good. So we're seeing that data is getting out there quicker, which is good. I'm glad to see that. That's important that we're going down that road. Okay. So this is what technology is doing now. Oops, went a little bit too far there. This is what technology is doing now. Is it's starting to let us bridge that gap that we've been talking about. There's this chasm that we've discussed, and the ability to get information from the job site to the office. And then, of course, once it gets to the office, the ability to have custom reports so that we can make those adjustments we need. And it sounds like some of you are doing that between that 1 and 3 day. They get that 1 and 3 day response. So it's getting quicker, right? That gap's getting a lot shorter. And here are some of the current trends in the industry. The more recent trends do have us moving in this direction, and the poll results show that. That's good news. However, compared to the other industries that have had technology for a lot longer time, specifically the manufacturing industry, we're still quite a bit behind. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. We'll get into that here shortly. One of our problems in construction is our comfort level. While we see that the level of comfort with IT is beginning to grow, we're still really dependent on older methods. And I talked about this earlier. Cell phones came in 20 some odd years ago, and we're still relying heavily on text with our cell phones. And there will always be a significant portion of construction that we're going to use text as a reliable means to communicate. So I don't want to take that away from it. However, what this poll is telling us that use of apps is getting more common in the construction industry. So, we're starting to get a comfort level with different smartphone apps by construction employees.
What does the graph mean by use of apps? Like, are we talking about construction apps?
Yeah, so what I mean by the use of apps is, Paul, I apologize, I should have clarified that. The use of apps is talking about apps like Amazon and Facebook and Netflix and kind of the everyday apps that people are using for social media. It's not necessarily construction apps, okay?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I agree. I mean, I'm at shows constantly, trade shows throughout the year, and year over year, it seems like we're getting more guys coming to us and kind of seeing the need and seeing that these construction apps are definitely the way to go. So we're definitely increasing what we're doing.
Yeah, and the construction world is trying, but they're just still not familiar. They're not necessarily comfortable with construction apps. But let me show you an interesting thing. Going back to the same poll that we'd shared earlier, we see that construction companies surveyed are now finding that field technology, when implemented properly, brings gains that were previously unknown to the industry. So 58% of companies, 58% of the respondents anyways, admitted that it does provide better data. 57% of the respondents said field technology will improve production, and 56% agreed that field technology provides better and more accurate information.
What I find interesting is when we look at that other graph we were showing, 22% are actually using the technology. So we're saying about half of that 22%. So we've still got a ways to go.
Yeah. So it's the trend is there, right? But we're still not quite there yet to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's kind of the more satisfying piece, and is construction starting to see the same trend that occurred back in the mid 90s with the manufacturing sector. So I'm sure a lot of people remember in the mid 90s, Windows 95 came out. And when that happened, the manufacturing industry blossomed into a very advanced IT-driven industry. And the results were substantial. They saw huge gains in productivity, huge gains in profitability. And we're starting to see those same trends in construction. And the cool thing is I don't know if it's coincidence or it's just a fact of technology. I think it's actually what technology does. Is the trend has followed that same course with regards to productivity and profitability. Okay. We're seeing these 30%
Yeah,
gains.
definitely.
Are you seeing that too, Israel?
Yeah, the customers I work with, I mean, if they're fully using the system and they're consistent with it, they're seeing 30% gains. I mean, as for BusyBusy, we've made sure that that field user experience is simple. It's easier to understand and adopt, which improves the information reporting from the job site. So this has consistently improved the company's profits 25 to 30% over their first year.
Yeah, so, and I'm going to show everybody how this works. But before I do, I want to just kind of launch another poll. Let's see, go ahead, Israel, if you'll read that to him, please.
How often does your management team review job site progress? So every day, every 2 to 3 days, every week, when things seem to be getting off schedule, or we review after the job is completed.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll, share these results. So this is good. Go ahead, Israel.
Yeah, every day, 25%, every 2 to 3 days, 31%, every week, 31%. So that's about even. And when things seem to be getting off schedule, about 25%. So what I like to see is we review after the job is completed is at 0. I mean, that's an old practice, and it's exciting to see the industry has moved completely away from that.
Yeah, that was the first thing I looked at, and I thought, okay, that's good. I'm glad that's the direction we're going. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about why that's working. So, you know, we're familiar with the construction triangle. I know many of you may not have seen this. You may have. So even if it's your first time, I think you're familiar with it. And what I mean by that is when we go to a project or we get a bid, we estimate, right? Any project starts with an estimate. We go to the execution phase of that, and then there's an evaluation phase, and then we go back to the estimate. And the old methods, you know, you go back 20 some odd years, you estimated, you executed, and then you evaluated, and you told the estimators everything they did wrong, and then they told the PM everything they did wrong, and then you went back and you estimated the next job, and you executed, and you went back and evaluated, right? Which works, okay? So we kind of went through that process of bid, execute, evaluate, which is great. What we really want to focus on here, though, is this piece, is the evaluation of it. This is where SMART Jobsite data begins to separate projects, the profitability, and you get those gains in the profitability of projects, okay? When we make it easy to evaluate jobs, as we've spoke of on an everyday basis, we see significant gains. And so if I go on our next slide here, I want to share with you, this is typically kind of, I mean, this isn't everybody's day, but this is kind of what we see a lot of. So we see an employee, they start on a project, they're doing a specific cost code, they go to lunch, they may do multiple cost codes on the day, such as this one showing they're doing a retaining wall versus a footing dig. They're working on different pieces of equipment. Maybe at lunchtime they went down and had to pick up stuff. But what we often get, or at least the old method, is we got a piece of paper, 8 hours excavating, maybe had the job number on it, maybe not, maybe had a cost code on it, maybe not. But we all know that's the wrong way, okay? And so that's why we want to talk about the SMART job site and how the SMART job site changes that trend, okay? Now, I've already shared this with you. We just spoke about it. But what I really want to emphasize is the ability to make that job site smart relies on the evaluation in a timely fashion. Imagine the potential of gathering all this data on a daily basis and then being able to react to it in real time. We want to have the ability to evaluate on a daily basis and not have to wait days, even if it's 2 or 3 days. That could be too late. A lot of companies I know in the past have waited a week. They wait till payrolls run. I see, based on our poll results, that trend is changing, which is great. But we don't need to just bridge that gap that I've been speaking of, that chasm. We need to just completely close it, okay?
Well, I think the difference between having the data to bridge the gap and eliminating that gap is actual smart site data, job site data, because it's timely.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we speak of when we talk about smart job site data. So, we've talked about a lot of different items that IT has improved upon, and we've seen many companies implement that IT to provide what I would call SMART data. And what I mean by that is they get specific info, they get measurable info, they get actionable info that's relevant, but a lot of times it lacks that timeliness. And that timeliness, as we've emphasized, is the key. So without the timeliness, it's just SMART data, right? To use this same acronym. But it's the T that bridges that gap. Once we have the timely information, we now have eliminated the gap. And not only do we gather and collect this data, but we do so in such a timely fashion that we can react to it in real time to make the necessary adjustments to keep our project on schedule and, more importantly, profitable. Now, I want to just kind of share with you a couple of case studies that we've had here at our company from Smart Jobsites, and I want to share with you what I call the tale of two bends. These are kind of two extremes of what we've seen, meaning, and what I mean by those extremes is the extremes in the construction sectors. New York City, as everybody knows, is the #1 construction market in the United States. I don't know how it compares worldwide, but I imagine it's probably up there in the top. I think it's at least twice as large as the next largest, which is LA. So that tells you the size of the amount of construction going on in New York City. Salt Lake City is not top 20. I think it might be in the top 30 of construction markets in the country. So it's sizable, but it's definitely not in New York, right? There's probably more construction projects in one like in the Bronx of New York than there is in all of Salt Lake. But just to give you an idea of what we have here is each of these sectors has different needs and demands that it places upon different construction companies. Okay, so in New York, it's a little bit more heavily regulated, a lot more paperwork. Office staffs need to be a little bit larger, or in some cases, a lot larger. Salt Lake, on the other hand, has a little bit less regulation, in some cases, a lot less regulation. But the beauty of it is smart job site data has allowed both of these companies to scale and manage that scalability because they're using that smart job site data. So let me talk to you specifically about Ben in Salt Lake. So he runs about 60 employees. They're an exterior finish contractor. His goal, and I've been in his company several times, is to run a lean organization. They are not top heavy at all. In fact, I would tell you they might be a little bit too lean at the top. Ben likes to be out on the field. He's out in the field. He's running his crews. He's managing his crews. He's glad handing the GCs. He's doing what he does best, okay? And he leaves the work in the office for people that want to do office type work. Well, once he wanted to grow, but he was struggling, going, man, I got to hire more people at the top side, which he did have to do. But when he implemented smart job site data, he was able to get that data. It gave him the ability to be where he is out in the field and still see what's happening at the different job sites. He can still see what's happening in the office, and his office can handle the things that they need to handle, with regards to invoicing, billing, contracts, payroll, all of that. And he doesn't have to be there to give that oversight. On the flip side, we have Ben in New York here. And I mean, this company is just amazing. So they run a completely different structure. It's kind of the same story, but with even better results. When 170 Group started with us, they had 30 employees. They're kind of a developer that does GC, a mechanical contractor, and they used to sub out most of their labor. Now they have more than 200 employees and they exceed 100 million in revenue. And Israel, you've been in this company. What do you share with everybody, kind of their story?
Yeah, that 600% growth just seems so crazy, but knowing him and seeing what's happened with this company over the last 2 years, I mean, I think they started mainly as an owner's rep, so managing the GC or managing the contractors coming through. And then they did some mechanical themselves. But I think as they started to use smart job site data, it started to get a hold on their labor and really get a handle on it. They were able to start performing more and more of the work. So just give you an example, they talk about doing things on a per room basis. So he was able to reduce costs from 20,000 per room to 15 because they're pulling all that stuff in and doing it all in house. And talking to him, he told me, he's like, the guys I have with me now, I paid them more than the subs were paying them, and we're saving money, and they have better margins. And I loved his quote. He said, if you're skilled at your job, your employer will take care of you. BusyBusy allows them to measure this.
Yeah, and I was in that meeting. I remember that quote. That was pretty cool. I think the coolest thing about this is when they implemented Smart Jobsite data, what it allowed them to do was to grow and not have to sub out things, because kind of as anybody knows, as you grow your business, it begins to be a monster you have to feed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that Smart Jobsite process allowed them to rein that in. They began hiring employees rather than having fewer employees and more subs, because they saw how they could still remain lean and manage those employees. And Israel, you've been in their office. You've seen they kind of are fat at the top, right? They're kind of standard New York contractor. But
yeah, I mean they've got a lot of their own architects in house now, so we don't necessarily think that's top, but they're still a little top heavy there. But they need that to get through all that red tape in New York.
Yeah, and when I say
now,
that, in comparison to, say, a contractor here in the Salt Lake market, right?
Oh yeah, it's such a different market. I mean, these guys were doing work just in New York, and now they're doing it all throughout the Northeast. I mean, we've seen them on jobs as far east as Kansas City, or as far west as Kansas City. So
That's right.
They've grown substantially.
Yeah, but the cool thing is like Ben, he still actually has a finger on his business, and it's still close to him. And the cool thing is using Smart Jobsite data, he's able to see all that every day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He told me managing a much larger workforce, he couldn't do it without the help of Busy.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, so I want to run another poll here, kind of get a feel for this last. I think this is our last one. This last question from everybody. So let's go ahead and launch this poll, Israel.
So, do you require daily reports from your field team? So the answers are yes from all employees, yes from all crew leaders or job supervisors. We require them, but the team doesn't follow through, or we don't require them at all.
So I'm guessing that we're going to get a lot of require them, but the team doesn't follow through. And we're going to get a lot of yes, it's required, and they want the supers to do it. Let's go ahead and close the poll.
Yeah, crew leaders is what we see a lot of from.
What'd the results show? Let's see. Go ahead.
Okay, so from all employees, 0%, which is where we need to be. From all crew leaders or job supervisors, 55%. That's our biggest one. We require them, but the team doesn't follow through, about 27%, and about 18% we don't require them at all.
Okay, so this is pretty interesting. I look at this 0% from all employees, and this is kind of that transition to Smart Jobsite data. And I know everybody out there, they're thinking, well, I don't want my guys to have to sit and do a report every day, and we don't. That's not the intent here. The intent is to have it so easy that the employees can enter information that gives their perspective of items, that allows you
I think
to.
that we think about a daily report as a big long thing that we typically make our superintendents do.
Right.
But if we can get the mindset of just collecting a little bit of information from everyone, I mean, yeah, we probably still want an overview from that superintendent, but we want a little bit of data from everyone. That kind of makes that superintendent's job easier.
Yeah, and that's what I'm alluding to is if you have 10 guys on site and they're all given just kind of their little own spiel of what happened, they all have a different perspective, and it kind of gives you a better story. And without going too far into this, I've actually been deposed in a couple situations pertaining to daily reports, and I've seen the lack of daily reports be detrimental to the person that was being sued. Or I think actually I had it on both sides, one that was being sued and one that wasn't. But anyways, long story short, I was called in as a witness, and both situations, those lack of daily reports hurt somebody. Imagine
absolutely.
Imagine the power of having that information, from everybody, not just a super. So Okay, well, let's move on here. So I want to talk about, is a smart job site easy, right? Um, and we've already talked about the wrong way. We talked about Mike typically comes in, he works his day, and you get this, right? And we already agree that's the wrong way. I don't think anybody here likes that. But what I really want to talk about is the ability to make this smart job site data just simple and quick. Okay. So it needs to be more than just the simple 8 hours on job X. Okay. And we don't need to come up with these in-depth, detailed time cards. And what I do, and I know Israel and what you do, we see these time cards that are just, they're in depth. They got a lot of info on them. The problem is that information doesn't get taken back to the office until Monday or Tuesday of the following week. And worse, and I know you've seen this. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, or they're using so many different cost codes that the field guys can't even get through it all. They don't understand it. The cost codes are so refined, and they need to be so much more simple.
Yeah, and a lot of times these reports don't even get filled out. Their time cards don't get filled out till the following Monday, right? I call it the time card chase. What we are talking about here, and I don't mean this in a condescending way, I mean this in a complimentary way, though it'll come across condescending, is we're trying to idiot proof this, right? We're trying to make it so the guys don't have to think about a bunch of things. They just clock in, boom, it's done, and here's the information they need. So what we really want is for Mike to be able to see Valley Apartments right here and identify that he's clocked into Valley Apartments, he's clocked into doing retaining wall work if that's a cost code, and also identifying the piece of equipment he's done. But it's in a drop down, so it's already pre-selected. He can't mess that up, okay? And then when he goes to break, he goes to break or lunch, and when he's done, he's done. And then when he changes tasks or changes cost code or changes piece of equipment, it's on a drop down. So he doesn't have 500 pieces of equipment to choose from, and he doesn't have 500 cost codes to choose from. It's really simple. These are the cost codes on this project, end of story. This is the equipment on this project, end of story. He can't mess that up, right? And that's what we're really seeing success.
It's just got to be easy for them. And so it's not that they're dumb. These guys are so intelligent, but it's that they want to get their work done. They don't want to be messing with their phone or with reports. So we want to make it easy.
Yeah. And they're good at that, right? They're not good at managing the office stuff. So we take the office to them on a piece of paper and we say, manage this also, and that's too difficult. They just don't want to do that. So if we can simplify that for them, this is the way to do it. So Israel, will you kind of walk everybody through this, please?
Yeah, so it's just going to show us real quick how they're clocking in, how a description can either be typed in. Most of the guys I've seen use that little microphone at the bottom and just talk it in. So it's so much easier. But to be able to switch from job to job or from cost code to cost code, and it's about as much time as it takes as you jump off a machine. I mean, most of these guys will look at their phone, see if their wife or significant other text them, and then put their phone back away. That's how fast it's got to be and how easy. You can see on the right how it separates the cost codes, and that information is already reporting in. I mean, smart job site data is simple and easy. We all know that our field guys are working on many things throughout the day. An easy way to report these tasks as they complete them, not a week later when they're guessing. So switching from task to task needs to be simple. BusyBusy provides a simple solution to accomplish it.
And the cool part is as soon as Mike clocks in, if Israel's his supervisor, Israel can see he's clocked in, right?
I can see he's clocked in. I can see where he's clocked in.
Yeah, and if you're not at the job site, you can still see where he's clocked in, and you can see what task he's doing, right? You're not worried about those types of things.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
I mean, I think when we build it, just one quick note. I mean, I think as we built this thing out, the main thing we were trying to answer for our own company was, where are my guys and what are they doing, without having to drive to every job site constantly checking on them.
Yeah, fantastic point. So this right here is, whoops. It goes back to that screen I had before. How do we get daily job site information or information from the job site to the office and get the custom reports that we need to do what we want. Well, this is what we're talking about when we say smart job site data. All the data we need. And the best part is this information can push into any ERP system, any accounting system that you have, so that that stuff can be done on a daily basis too. Now, we have customers that don't do that. Sometimes they do it once a week, but they have this information on a daily basis so they can make the changes they need to on the jobs they need to. So let's talk about a little bit about the shift, the smart shift, and how we do that, okay? It's not too difficult. We asked the question earlier, is smart job site easy? The simple answer is yes. But you do have to go through the learning curve, right? There is a learning curve. There's a couple steps to involve this. So Israel, go ahead and if you would please share what you do with your customers.
So initially, I mean, we customize a rollout plan for your company. And then we train the organizational leaders first. Once everybody kind of has that, their head wrapped around it, then we get the team ready to onboard and adopt that technology. And then we collect feedback from the team, from the whole team, not just the leaders, so we can maximize usage. I mean, the IT solution has to be nimble so you can modify as needed. And then we make improvements part of the process. I mean, ongoing maintenance and training is always part of the process. We're always adjusting, we're always making it better. Because it's amazing the data you can gather.
The coolest part is that we have so many customers that ongoing maintenance and training gives them the ability to adjust this on the fly, right? Like you can set this up and in 2 weeks you can say, you know what, I want to do this, or I don't want it to be this way, I want it to be this way. Well, it's that flexible, it's that malleable, right? I have a mechanical contractor that we were into it about 3 weeks and he said, hey, can I also get this data? And I said, yeah. So we rebuilt it and he got that data. And then about 3 weeks later, he called and says, hey, I also want to get this data. Hey, no problem. We can do that. And so we've gone through tweak after tweak after tweak. I think we're actually on like the 7th tweak with them because every time they do this, they're like, oh man, we can get this information too. And to see the way they're running their jobs and managing their crews is just so efficient. And they're setting guys up, sending them out to the specific job they need to be in. The guys can look at their phone and see where they're supposed to be tomorrow. You know, they're not worried. It's almost it gives you the ability to micromanage without being a micromanager because the tool is there. You want to add anything else
That's
to that?
exactly right. Yeah, I just think it's amazing to see because once they start seeing the data flowing in, how much they look at other data they can collect from it or other ways they can look at it. And so they start to see their projects in a new way. I mean, and we have programs that help them do this 6-step. But it's so exciting to me because growing up in the construction industry and to see companies just grow and increase profits and flourish and see the change it makes in their culture, their company has been incredible. I thoroughly enjoy it.
It's quite the change. It makes it fun, right? Certainly makes it fun. So, okay.
It really does.
You know, to learn more about it, we invite you to talk to the BusyBusy team. We do have the basic BusyBusy, and then of course we have our next level consulting, of which Israel is one of the pro advisors. And Israel goes into companies and will spend quite a bit of time with them to help them build out a smart job site and even do other things. And you can always talk to Israel to get more details on what he can offer you there. But we invite you to learn more today. I also, at this time, want to take any questions that might be out there. Let's see. Okay, I have one about the cost. The cost of BusyBusy is really simple. It's based on the number of employees you have per year. I will tell you, it's an investment. It's not an expense. Okay, and I would invite you to contact our sales team, and they can give you the exact details of that. Let's see. Okay, I have another question that said, how hard is it to get started? Well, that depends on your company size and the number of manpower you have. I have companies that jump into it and they'll put on 100 employees in a week. I have companies that take it and they'll just put 5 or 10 or 20 guys on over a period of time. Whatever works best for your company, you know your employees best, you know your office staff best. There's no reason to overwhelm everybody. You know, I have companies that take 6 months, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would tell you they're moving what's best at the pace that's best for their company. So it works good for everybody. You know, we're there to hold your hand through the process. Our intention isn't to make it more difficult for you. Okay.
Well, let me add to that last
Yeah.
question. You know, we see some companies that will come on and they'll say, well, we're going to let 5 of our guys try this, just see if it works for them, and then we'll grow it from there. Well, that's great, and you can work it that way, but you need to make sure that they understand we're not trying it, and if we don't like this solution, then we're just going to go back to the old way. They need to understand that you're moving forward with one solution or another. You're trying to find the best one, not trying to decide if you want to do this or go back to paper. Because we have guys fight it if they think they can get you to push it back off. If they know you're going some direction, they're going to help you find a good solution for your company.
That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. The next question I have is how easy is this to integrate with other systems, and what systems does it integrate with? So we have worked with, we have direct integrations where we actually sync back and forth with QuickBooks and with Procore. We have indirect integrations, meaning that you have to push the information in via CSV to Sage, Computeries, Foundation. Actually, Foundation is a direct mapping. Viewpoint, and I know I'm missing Explorer. Thank you. Explorer actually is better. Explorer is a drag and drop. So you get the report out of BusyBusy, and you just drop it into Explorer, which it's really cool how well that one works. But yeah, so we work with anybody. I've yet to find one that I can't work with. I'm not saying it's not out there, but I've yet to find one that we haven't been able to work with. So yeah, we integrate with a lot of different ERP systems. Okay, let's see. Just looking through these questions, some of them were duplicate. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about, I've got a couple different reports questions. So reports are generated in BusyBusy based on all the information that's in BusyBusy. However, I've never seen or rarely see 2 companies that want the same reports. So it's not uncommon for us to have to create custom reports for a company. We do that all the time. So we've got our set number of reports in there, which have a lot of versatility to them, but it's very common to also create custom reports for your company because you may not find the exact report you're using. And our intention isn't to change your reports process. Our intention is to change how quickly that information gets into that report. So we can do that for you. Get the same report you're already getting, but get that information a lot faster.
Well, and I think one thing to show too is the reports for us are not just on your computer. They're on your phone. A lot of these reports you can look at on your phone. You can export them right from your phone.
Yeah, great point. Great point. There's because of the mobile application of it, we can create those reports right from our phone. So let's see. I think. Do you see any other question that I've?
There's a question about which module of Explorer Eclipse that the data drops into. And I think there's a connector, kind of like QuickBooks that you buy, and then that helps it sync both directions.
Is that one on Eclipse? Is that what they said, Israel? Is that what the question was?
Yeah. It was, do you know which module of Explorer Eclipse the data is dropped into?
If you guys, whoever's asked, I don't have the exact name of that module, but it is a separate module, but it can be dropped. They actually designed that one specifically for
Busy.
Yeah, but it is a separate module. It doesn't come with the Eclipse, but yeah, it's just an add-on. Anything else? Do you see any other there that we're missing, Israel?
I don't.
Okay, I see. Let's see. There's one that says, what's the next steps to creating a smart job site after the initial rollout? So I would tell you, again, every company is a little bit different, but once you start, some companies just want to start and they just want to track time, which is great. And when I say that, they track time based on project and cost code and equipment, right? Maybe they have multiple levels of cost codes or phase codes or whatever. You start there and you get everybody feeling warm and fuzzy with that. For the field, it will never change for the guys in the field. Is all they have to do is clock in and clock out. It doesn't get much more complicated than that. It's the office staff that you kind of phase into the complexity, if I can call it that. So you can start with, okay, we just want to get data, just hours based on certain items. Go ahead.
My signal's cutting out a little bit. If I can add to that, I mean, once you've got it actually working and you're getting kind of the data you're looking for, I mean, we can definitely step in, and we've got programs that will help you start creating other ways and customizing some of the things you're trying to track and help you make that better.
That's right. So yeah, so we can, you can take this to the nth degree. Like I said, I've got one customer in particular that they keep adding on information they want to pull out of it, which is really cool. So, okay, I don't see any questions there that haven't been answered. And we will send over this recording shortly. Okay.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your time today. We definitely have fun doing these, and we love seeing companies grow.
Very good. Well, thanks everybody for joining us.